Hi there. So you've been asking, so I'm going to give you an answer. What are my thoughts on Kirk Cameron saying that he now embraces annihilation? All right, well, let's talk about that. So first off, it doesn't matter what he believes. Just because he's a Christian and a prominent figure in our culture doesn't mean that everything he knows or thinks is correct, and even he would tell you that. So no problem there. The problem with believing in annihilation, though, and I know some of you believe in it, the problem is that it removes any need for evangelism. You're actually giving atheists exactly what they want. They want to live their life not thinking about God, and then they just want their life to be over. And so, yeah, they might get thrown into a lake of fire and it might hurt for a bit, but from their perspective, eventually it'll end and they got what they wanted. A little bit of pain later so they can sin as much as they want now. That defeats the whole purpose of trying to reach them because they don't want God anyway. Appealing to them like, hey, wouldn't you rather have heaven with God forever? No, they don't want God. That's the point. There's only really one verse that talks about destruction. Everybody brings up Matthew, and that word in the original Greek does not mean utter obliteration. It's very similar to Isaiah when he looks upon the Lord and says, woe is me, for I am undone. That's the kind of the idea, metaphorically so. Because Revelation 14 says clearly, the smoke of their torment goes up forever. Not the smoke of the fire, not the smoke of their dissipation, of their torment. And Jesus makes a similar statement right here where he talks about the worms in the fire that don't end. But just saying, hey, if you don't, you disappear, then the good news for them becomes they can do what they want rather than they need to be saved, that there is a path of salvation for them. Because to them, salvation is giving them what they don't want, eternity with a God they don't love. I think most of this annihilation thinking comes from wanting to defend God. People have this idea that if he allows people to be tormented for eternity, somehow he's an evil God. But no, he's a just judge. Sinning against an eternal God requires an eternal punishment. He didn't have to save us at all. We deserve that. The loving grace of God is not that he ends their existence. It's that he allows us to be adopted as sons or daughters of God in spite of the sin that we have committed. And Jesus willingly died just to give us that opportunity. How much more loving does he need to be? So let's be careful not to impose on God our morality. It needs to be the other way around.